Welcome to Experiential Learning. I'm David Kolb. I created the experiential learning cycle in 1974 and published my learning styles model in 1984. In contrast to environmental learning styles such as auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and tactile, my learning style is based on perception and processing. Learners perceive and process information along a spectrum. The key question: how does one learn and then apply the new knowledge? My theory is that learning is a process represented by 4 stages. Concrete experience. This could be a new experience or a reintroduction of an existing experiencing. Reflective observation of the new experience. This involves reflecting on the new experience and related it to existing knowledge. Abstract conceptualization. New ideas are generated by the reflection that has occurred from their abstract thinking. And active experimentation. This occurs when the learner applies this to their world. I developed 4 learning styles based on this continuum: accommodator, diverger, assimilator, and converger. Learners tend to prefer one of the 4 styles over the others. Although I consider these learning styles to be a continuum that one moves through over time, most people prefer and rely on one style over the others. The accommodators land between concrete experience and active experimenter stages. The question, "What would happen if I did this?" motivates these students. They seek significance in the learning experience and think about what they can do as well as what others have done in the past. These learners are good with complexity and are able to see relationships among aspects of a system. Recommended instructional methods include independent discovery and active participation in learning. Instructors who work with this type of student may expect questions like "what if" and "why not?" The divergers land between reflective observer and concrete experience stages. These students are driven to determine the significance or why of a situation. They prefer to reason from concrete, specific information and to investigate what a system has to offer, and they prefer to be presented with information in a detailed, systematic, and reasoned manner. Recommended instructional methods include lecture method focusing on specifics such as the strengths, weaknesses, and uses of a system, and hands-on exploration of a system. The instructor would be best to interact with the students, answering questions and making suggestions. Ready reference guides provide handy, organized summaries for this kind of learner. The assimilators fall between abstract conceptualization and reflective observer stages. These students are driven to discover the answer to the question, "What is there to know?" They value accurate, well-organized information delivery, and they value the expert's knowledge. They aren't that comfortable randomly exploring a system, and they like to get the right answer to the problem. Recommended instructional methods include lecture method followed by a demonstration, exploration of a subject in a lab, following a prepared tutorial, which they will probably stick to quite closely, and for which answers should be provided. These learners are perhaps less instructor-intensive than some other learning styles. They will carefully follow prepared exercises. And finally, the convergers fall between abstract conceptualization and active experimenter stages. These students are motivated to discover the relevancy or the how of a situation. Understanding detailed information about the system's operation increases the application and usefulness of the information. Instruction should be interactive, not passive for these learners. Recommended instructional methods include computer-assisted instruction is a possibility, and problem sets or workbooks can be provided for students to explore.
Research suggests modern workplaces can benefit from Kolb's experiential learning theory. Although some disadvantages have been identified, in general this learning theory can be applied with success. Call centers use role-play-style customer service training to offer more experience-based learning, while other companies have created gamified learning to make the experience segment fun while reinforcing systems thinking. Examples of this are Friday Night at the ER and the beer distribution game. Kolb's model balances hands-on learning with more traditional learning styles and requires the designer, or teacher, to use more tools to teach successfully, rather than simply lecturing or assigning readings. The model can be useful in offering designers something like a checklist for them to build training around. This way training meets more learning styles, and thus becomes more applicable to a broader learning audience. With modern LMS stepping up with different options, it's becoming easier to add gamification, badges, and leaderboards to help learners who prefer concrete experiences. Some LMS can also support more social learning to encourage collaborative learning and growth, while also continuing to offer a selection of more traditional learning for those whose strengths and preferences lie there.
Kolb's model emphasizes a continuous learning approach: experience, reflect, think, act, then repeat. This cycle is not always the ideal approach when learners have a concrete learning end, such as certification or exams. Also, it can be difficult for designers to meet all the learning styles when building training. In modern workplaces, time is not always on the designer's side, and adding more hands-on learning approaches can be challenging. Additionally, it can be difficult to create real-world applications for all learning to apply the learning cycle. With group learning, it can be challenging to incorporate a range of learning techniques to meet all the needs of the group. This also highlights the challenge of not necessarily knowing the learning style preferences of a group prior. This model works very well when the teacher/training is aware of individual learning styles prior.
One criticism of Kolb's learning model is that as it appeals to a more linear style of learning, it neglects to accommodate those who may use more abstract methods. Alongside Dunn and Dunn's model from 1989, which includes kinesic, visual and tactical practices, or Felder and Silverman's 1988 model, which involves visualizing, verbalizing, and intuitive sensing directly in its learning practice, Kolb is somewhat lacking in his more simplistic and clean approach. Concerns of this simplistic method of learning are eventual mental laziness, dogmatic and possibly false conclusions, or inability to recognize how nuances and changes apply to the model.
Despite the challenges identified, Kolb's experiential learning cycle remains one of the strongest and more influential learning theories to date.
Kolb's method piques our curiosity and has us asking, how does this model manifest in teaching nursing students? How do we see the process transfer when we introduce the new skill or concept to them?
Since this model's inception, our understanding of the learner and their lived and learned experiences have changed greatly. What challenges can you foresee in implementing this model uncritically in a modern workplace? What would you do to try and ensure your training includes all, or most, experiences?
Check out some of these resources for further learning and information. Thanks for watching.